Hello, and welcome to the For We Are Many podcast. My name is Rob, and I will be your host and comrade this evening. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to call Alec Baldwin a murderer. We're just going to go ahead and get that right out of the way. Um, Cuba joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. We'll talk about that. Starbucks workers are pushing for a union. That's pretty relevant given all the uh, labor shortage issues, the wage shortage issues that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. Um, we're going to do a little bit of a recap on the life of Eugene Debs. Um, the anniversary of his death was this week, I believe. Might have been last week. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. And then we're going to talk about organizing, like in the real world, like getting together with your community and trying to improve the world that you live in. Um, yeah. So, how's everybody doing tonight? Hi, Emily. Bear with me for a moment. I am sharing the stream around. If you would like to take this moment to do the same, that would be greatly appreciated. All right. How's it going? Let's see. Um, I guess we'll jump right in. We're going to talk about Alec Baldwin. Um, so, as I'm sure most of you have heard at this point, um, Alec Baldwin shot and killed one of his film crew um, with a prop gun that he supposedly believed to be unloaded. Most of the Union crew had taken off earlier that day. They hired scabs, trying to save a few bucks. Um, and I mean, when we're talking about a live round, we should be talking about a blank in that scenario, right? This is Hollywood. This is not an actual gunfight. Um, and he was supposed to be shooting at the camera, first of all, like directly at the camera, from what I understand. Um, not at somebody a mere couple feet away. That doesn't make sense. If it was a blank, that means there is no projectile. It's just gunpowder. I'm not saying that that wouldn't kill somebody. What I am saying is there would not be a ricochet. Um, the point is that ultimately what it comes down to is a labor issue. Okay, as I already said, most of the Union crew left earlier that day for these reasons. It wasn't safe. There was too many corners being cut. Calvin said in the comments that the person who gave him the gun was known to not be safe, but who knows? Exactly. And I think that, the person who gave him the gun being part of the production team doesn't look well for the labor issue side of it. From a lawsuit standpoint, anyway. For the labor side, it actually looks good. But there's definitely more going on there than the mainstream media is talking about. But the union has very loudly spoken out about what the conditions are like on the set of Rust, how unsafe it was. Why does it take something like this for this to even hit the news, you know? Good evening, Natalie. Good to see you. So I just want to reiterate that it is a labor issue. And yes, Calvin, Alec Baldwin is, I believe, the executive producer on the movie. And ultimately, it comes down to him trying to pinch pennies. That's all it comes down to. He's cutting corners, and that's putting lives at risk. And it costs someone their life. It's completely unacceptable, and I think he needs to be held accountable for at least manslaughter charges, as well as a full investigation into why the conditions were so unsafe on that set. We all know it's because he was trying to pinch pennies. We all know that already. But it's time to have a team go in and do an investigation and document that shit. All right. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place right now. This is why I hate doing these streams alone. It's not as easy as one would hope. Between trying to share things around and discuss the things at the same time. Give me just a second though. Working on pulling something up to show you. All right. Sorry about the small delay there.
Set of Rust with a prop gun, a half-dozen camera crew workers walked off the set to protest working conditions. The camera operators and their assistants were frustrated by the conditions surrounding the low-budget film, including complaints of long hours and getting their paychecks, according to 3 people familiar with the matter who were not authorized to comment. The camera crew showed up for work as expected at 6:30 a.m. Thursday and began gathering up their gear and personal belongings to leave, one knowledgeable crew member told the Los Angeles Times. Labor trouble had been brewing for days on the dusty set at the Bonanza Creek Ranch near Santa Fe. Shooting began on October 6 and members of the production said they had been promised the production would pay for their hotel rooms in Santa Fe. But after filming began, the crews were told they instead would be required to make the 50-mile drive from Albuquerque each day, rather than stay overnight in nearby Santa Fe. The cinematographer who was accidentally killed, Jaime Hutchins, had been advocating for safer conditions for her team, said one crew member who was on the set. As the camera crew, members of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, spent about an hour assembling their gear at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, several non-union crew members showed up to replace them, the knowledgeable person said. A member of the producer's staff then ordered the union members to leave the set. She said if they didn't leave, the producers would call security to remove them. Corners were being cut, and they brought in non-union people so they could continue shooting, the knowledgeable person said. There were 2 misfires on the prop gun on Saturday and 1 the previous week, the person said, adding there was a serious lack of safety meetings on this set.
So, I mean, pretty self-explanatory, as I was just talking about. It was Alec Baldwin trying to cut corners to save pennies. Hi, James. It is good to see you. Kelvin, nothing really happened to anybody. Trisha was supposed to be on tonight, but she also had a few things to take care of before the stream, and I would guess that she did not get that done in time. But that being said, we've been a little shoddy with our streams lately, and Tuesdays have been the only ones that we've managed to keep on time. So I wasn't trying to risk that. I wanted to see all you guys. Cuba is joining China's Belt and Road Initiative. What that should mean. Actually, I can show you a video, and in fact, I will. But basically, what this can mean for Cuba is access to things like high speed rail, access to things like green energy. Um, you know, it opens a lot of doors for Cuba. And also, thus far, China's been pretty reliant on Western vaccines, and that opens the door for Cuba to pay for some of this infrastructure that China will be building by selling their vaccine on a global market. So that's important. But just to dive a little deeper than I can, per se, at this exact moment, we're going to watch a video.
Cuba recognizes the significance of its participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative. It's especially important when it comes to sectors like telecommunications and projects involving mobile telephone service, data transmission, and digital television.
No solo Cuba adopta
Cuba not only adopted the Chinese digital TV standard, but also infrastructure for the terrestrial digital TV broadcast and the production of TV sets and equipment of the Chinese system.
According to Gonzalez, digital TV reaches more than 3/4, 76.2% of the Cuban population in standard definition, and nearly half, that's 45.7%, in high definition. CGTN visited the plant assembling equipment for the ongoing transition from analog to digital TV.
In cooperation with the sister nation of China, we manufacture TV converter boxes. We plan to produce 326,000 boxes this year.
The manufacture of TV converters based on Chinese technology is crucial to guarantee the current expansion of digital TV in Cuba, even under the conditions imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Despite the economic and social impact of the coronavirus, information technologies have offered Cubans a promising option to deal with the pandemic.
el sector de las comunicaciones.
Even with COVID-19, the telecommunications sector has not stopped growing, and this is shown by the ongoing development of the communications infrastructure and our support of the education process through web platforms.
In recent years, Cuba has developed a mobile communications infrastructure, first by opening cybercafes and hotspots, and more recently 3G and 4G data services, all with Chinese technology. Currently, more than 7 million Cubans are connected to the internet, with still a fraction of ADSL home connections. Despite COVID-19, Cuban families like the Almanzas can work from home thanks to their internet connection.
This is very useful. I can keep in contact with my clients. My wife can work from home during the pandemic, while my daughter can download books for her university studies.
Cubans have faced limited access to outside resources during the pandemic, but officials say Cuba is expected to keep developing projects in the best interest of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and telecommunications will be a big part of it going forward. Luis Chirino, CGTN, Havana.
Sorry, I was muted. So, I didn't even really think about the I guess the more technological side of it, the internet access, um, the internet access is really a game changer, because now most Cubans, anyway, not all, as they were saying, can communicate globally. That's a big improvement. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that China is also willing to like help them set up things like solar desalination, so Cubans never have to go without water again. I'm hoping to see um, China learn from Cuba's healthcare system. This partnership should go two ways. That's generally how the BRI works. And I think that China has a lot to learn from Cuba, just as much as China can offer Cuba a lot. While we're on the topic of Cuba, I wanted to do a vaccine update on Cuba. As of the last reported numbers, which were 3 days ago, over 9.8 million doses have been administered to 86.5% of the population. And just shy of 62% of the population is fully vaccinated, which is over 7 million people. They didn't start vaccinating until the 7th of May. Just to put that in perspective for everybody here. That's a hugely impressive feat. Not to mention that they're completely homegrown vaccines. That's incredible. And they were calling for a 3-shot setup way before we were talking about boosters. When they rolled it out, it was a 3-shot setup. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of good things out of Cuba right now. And I think that's only going to continue. Do you guys have any questions, concerns, or comments about Cuba joining the Belt and Road Initiative? If so, just type them in the chat, the usual thing. But there's also, speaking of other good things that Cuba's been doing, they just passed 63 measures to increase food production. For example, they are reworking a lot of their customs and duties laws. Basically, after that one day of protests, government officials went around to towns and asked what they can do better, and they're taking that and acting on it. That's far more influence than we could ever hope to have here. Well, with our current government anyway, but back to labor. Starbucks is doing a unionization drive right now. Hopefully their Walgreens isn't overfilled with people waiting in line for vaccine. It's getting bad here. Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Okay, so like they are having doctors and nurses go out into the neighborhoods and literally administer these doses at people's homes, because that's how their healthcare system is set up. So, I mean, they're not going to have an issue with long lines and things like that. Most Cubans, I should say, are not going to have that issue with long lines at Walgreens compared to here. But I think that we should be learning from Cuba as well. They have a world-class healthcare system, even if a lot of their hospitals and facilities are using seriously outdated equipment. They still provide an exemplary level of care that we could only hope to get here. Speaking of which, Cuba will be reopening for tourism. I forget if it's at the end of the year or the end of November, but either way, that's coming. So we'll see how their vaccination push works here in a couple of months. But I think that we're going to be looking at full vaccination in Cuba by the end of the year. I mean, it might not read as 100%, because there are, people that have medical exemptions to not get them. That's a good point, Emily. She said, I think a big part of the long lines is that a lot of workplaces are getting mandates, so all those people who wouldn't get the vaccines now have to, and we no longer have the state vaccination sites forcing people to head up Walgreens, etc. Yeah, that was one thing that I thought that Arizona did really well rolling out the vaccine, which is funny because we botched about everything else pertaining to COVID. But the state-run vaccination sites were really well operated, and I mean, we're talking about like thousands of cars in line, and it ran smoothly. But yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have gotten rid of the state vaccination sites if that's the approach we were going to take. But I would much rather have a system like Cuba's where, for a big vaccination push like this, you're not even going somewhere to get it. They come to you. And I mean, that's just a lot. Well, now, thanks to China's help with technology, Cuba is able to do a lot of like telemedicine and stuff too. So that's also been important. But the thing is that's free there. It's not here. But yeah, something does need to happen with the lines. Exactly, James. The National Guard was way faster than Walgreens. Way more efficient. And I think it was the National Guard that was running Arizona sites too, so that makes sense. Wisconsin halted their wolf hunt about 2 weeks before the season was scheduled to begin. And I just want to say, first of all, that is a major victory for Indigenous people. That being said, they're painting it as more of a constitutional issue, and that's not the case at all. If the headlines were accurate, they would read something like, Judge fears further resistance and unity of the tribes. Because that's what's starting to happen with these wolf hunt situations, and I think that the state is frankly terrified of it. Yeah, let me pull up some stuff on that real quick, though. There we go. Found it. All right. Damn it. Sorry, you guys.
6 Native American tribes sued Wisconsin in an effort to protect gray wolves from a hunt planned in November, asserting the hunt violates treaty rights and endangers an animal considered sacred to the tribes. The Chippewa tribes say they have rights to half of the wolf quota in the territory they ceded to the United States in the mid-1800s under treaties. The tribes don't plan on hunting the wolves, rather claiming the number to lessen the state's allotted quota of wolves hunters in the area are allowed to kill. A quota for the hunt in fall is set at 300, but the tribes have argued against it as hunters exceeded the set quota during a hunt in February that did not allow Native Americans to claim half.
So I just want to specify here that last year what happened was the quota was set at 210, I believe, and they blew past that in a few days. and they went way over the quota, which is not okay. I mean, we've been talking about Mako a lot lately, and as he would say, what happens to wolf happens to mankind. But from a scientific perspective, wolves shape the landscape, right? Like killing off the wolves to keep settler cattle here is absurd. But anyway, the point is that this year they raised the quota to lessen the impact of the Native Americans claiming half. That's not how this works.
In our treaty right, we're supposed to share with the state 50-50 in our resources, and we're feeling the W. For more reporting from the Associated Press, see below.
So the tribal lawsuit comes 3 weeks after a coalition of wildlife advocacy groups and tribes. Oh wait, no, the tribal lawsuit is separate from the wildlife advocacy groups lawsuit. My bad. Okay, so it comes 3 weeks after the wildlife advocacy group sued to stop Wisconsin's wolf hunt. And basically, they're trying to overturn the state law mandating annual hunts, they're arguing that the statutes don't give wildlife managers any leeway to consider population estimates. Natalie said, to circle back to our previous, it doesn't even show the whole comment. To our previous topic, Natalie said, even the vaccines are not really free in the U.S. If you read this small print after reading Walgreens, etc., advertisement for getting the vaccine. They definitely want to charge your insurance card. I assume if you don't have one, they still need to vaccinate and use the money Congress allocated. I believe that that's a pretty decent overview of how they are doing it. So anyway, back to the wolves. The state DNR set the February quota at 119, right? Which I was totally off on my estimate of that. But anyway, yeah, the quota was set at 119, which would give half of those to the tribe. And hunters killed 218 wolves in just 4 days, forcing an early end of the season. Agency biologists recommend setting the fall quota at 130, so they set it at fucking 300. And the lawsuit alleges the board's decision to set the quota at 300 was a deliberate move to nullify the tribe's share and was not based on science. The DNR's latest estimates put Wisconsin's wolf population at roughly 1,000. They wanted to kill a third of these. Opponents say hunters probably killed at least a quarter of the population if poaching is included. The Ojibwe word for wolf is, I'm not going to mispronounce that. But the indigenous people of the Great Lakes region call themselves Anishinaabe. The wolf holds a sacred place in their creation stories. To the Anishinaabe, the wolf are brothers. And that goes back to what Mako was saying about what happens to wolf happens to mankind. It's a great victory, but I just want to recap and say that a more accurate headline, than the judge ruling it unconstitutional was that the judge fears further indigenous resistance and unity of the tribes, because that is the direction that things were going. And Wisconsin. Not just in Wisconsin either. The fight to protect the wolves is going on all over Turtle Island. So then I guess I'm going to move on into, the section I wanted to use to dedicate to using what we learn and what we discuss in our leftist circles online to actually organize in the real world and, try to make a difference, try to build a better society. And there's a few organizations that I want to plug, both for education and for actual on the ground organizing. And that would be, I'm going to start with the IWW because they're one of the only radical labor unions left. We're in the middle of a labor uprising and we need a radical union. The whole idea of the IWW was to be one big union, which all workers could unite under. And I think we need to bring that mindset back some. So the next two go together, obviously, but the Black Panther Party and the White Panther Party, they have a very good educational program. Well, actually, I can also include the All African People's Revolutionary Party in this. They have a YouTube channel. They have a Facebook. They have a very good educational program as well. But back to the Black Panther Party, their 10-point program is still very relevant today. We also have the Communist Party USA, although I don't blame you if some of you are hesitant, I guess, to say the least. Because in 2020 they pushed Joe Biden. But that being said, the party seems to be going through a pretty significant growth phase, and they are doing things at the local level. So anyway, on that same note, we've also got the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They do a lot of mutual aid type events. Hi, Caitlin. They do a lot of mutual aid type events. They do a lot of, on the ground organizing. And of course, I want to talk about Mako's organization, Elahi Spirit Runners. The political line among all these organizations is fairly similar and goes right in line with what we talk about every time that we do one of these streams, whether it's theory or current events. This is the lens that we're viewing the world through. So, if you want to get involved with the IWW, Google them, go to their website, apply. If you want to join Elahi Spirit Runners, contact Mako. Even if you're in any of these other organizations and you want to organize with Elahi Spirit Runners, contact Mako. Same thing for CPUSA and PSL, though. Go online, type in CPUSA or type in PSL in your city, and it will show branches that are close to you. The whole point is that we can have all the theory we want, but if we're not practicing it in the real world, then what are we really doing? That's all. I just wanted to talk about good communistic organizations that exist and are literally organizing in the city you live in. They could also use help. Then I wanted to talk about Eugene Debs. So he was a socialist. He the anniversary of his death is October 20th, so we missed it by a little bit. But that being said, sorry, I got distracted for a second there. So we missed it by a little bit, but it was still last week, so we're not too late. But anyway, he was an American socialist, political activist, trade unionist, founding member of the IWW, and 5-time candidate for the Socialist Party of America for president. He became one of the best-known socialists in the U.S. Before he was a socialist, he was a member of the Democratic Party. He was elected as a Democrat, and in 1884, he was working with small unions, including the Brotherhood of Locomotive Firemen, and he led his union in a major 10-month strike in 1888. He was instrumental in the founding of the American Railway Union, which was one of the U.S.'s first industrial unions. And then there was the Pullman strike, over pay cuts in 1894, sorry. And Debs brought a lot of people into the American Railway Union. So a lot of these events that we're talking about, we have pieces about. We have pieces about Eugene Debs, for that matter. The Pullman strike, especially, we have one about, as well as some of the other organizations, unions that he was with. I believe that we titled the series "The Political Evolution of Eugene Debs," and the Pullman strike was basically like the line in the sand. He went to prison, actually, for sedition, because remember, the Sedition Act of 1918 was to quell anti-war dissent during World War I. And he was jailed for a speech denouncing American participation in World War I. Yeah. But, I mean, he led a boycott by the American Railway Union against handling trains with Pullman cars in what became the nationwide Pullman strike, affecting most lines west of Detroit and more than 250,000 workers in 27 states. The strike was ultimately broke up by the Army, and Debs was convicted of federal charges for defying a court injunction against the strike and served 6 months in prison. That was the first time he went to prison. While he was in prison, he was reading books on socialist theory and became a socialist. He was a founding member of the Social Democracy of America in 1897, the Social Democratic Party of America in 1898, and it was kind of like a flow through these events. The Social Democracy of America merged into the Social Democratic Party of America, merged into the Socialist Party of America. Debs ran as a socialist candidate for president 5 times, including 1900, 1904, 1908, 1912, and 1920, which was a 4-way race, if I remember correctly. He got 6% of the vote in 1912, which is a pretty decent amount of the vote. That being said, I guess I just want to encourage you guys to go back onto forwearemany.org. Exactly, Natalie. He was even able to organize while in prison, and that's inspiring. But I urge all of you to go to forwearemany.org and watch all of our pieces on Eugene Debs and the Pullman strike. There's a lot of good information in there, and obviously I'm not going to go over all of that on this stream. But I believe that brings us to the end of the list. I figured that was going to take about an hour, not 40 minutes, but I also expected to have Trisha here. So Shit happens, I guess. But anyway, yeah. For next week's episode, if you guys have anything that you want to see us talk about, message the page, message Trisha or I on Facebook, and we'll see what we can do to discuss it. Or if you want to come on to talk about something, again, hit us up. We're always looking for guests. Anyway, yeah. Hope all of you have a wonderful night.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no greater power anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever.